we can talk about. And with that, we'll be talking now about multifamily. Remember, this is about faith, family, and financial prosperity. I can tell you about the wealthy of the wealthy. They do things as family. They do things as family, and they always have a system about how this is done. And at the core is really financial planning. They're like, okay, this is the family estate. What do we do around it, right? They also look at and say, okay, these are the different asset classes, who can help us manage it? So they get professionals to help them manage it. They also actually have property advisors. When do I buy? When do I sell, right? Right? Because people just don't buy property and keep it for centuries, because that property is an asset. What can you do with it? So property advisor is something that they look at. Philanthropical management. Again, what is it you want to be known for in your family, right? What good work do you want to do in your family? For example, in my case, in my family, my parents and my grandparents were really big around the church. So if you look at the area where my grandparents are from, which is Kirinaga, they built a lot of churches, they supported a lot of church programs, a lot of schools. So that is what the family was known for in regards to doing God's work, mission work, and the church. So again, as a family, you have to come together and say, what do we want to be known for? What kind of lifestyle do I want to live? Because I believe that if you work very hard and you create wealth, there's a certain lifestyle that you want to live. So what kind of lifestyle is that? And how do you manage your cash flow? Families also look at strategy and they say, okay, we need a plan. Our estate, how are we going to transfer wealth? So even when you're going through financial prosperity, you have to say, you know what, there needs to be a time when I won't be here. How do I transfer that to the next generation? And what kind of advice do I get from there? And the most important thing that I think that has been missing, which I would encourage all of you to do, is actually financial training and education for your children and your children's children. Because if you do not train a child of the way to go, they're going to do other things that you don't want them to do. So you want to make sure that they have education and understand money so that they can continue building and building wealth as opposed to using and misusing it. Governance is also very important. God is a God of order. And also when you're doing things in your family or in business, you want to have order. These are the structures. This is what we do. This is how administration is done in the family business, in the family estate. Keeping records. These things are very important, and ultimately getting the right advisors are important, especially around risk, around asset protection, compliance with the laws of the land, tax advisory is very key. And so this is a bit formal, but this is what the wealthy of the wealthy do. So I believe that this is something that you need to learn to do so that it helps you and your family. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about really around faith, family, and financial prosperity is really the wealth cycle, the wealth cycle. The first thing when you're creating wealth is really around accumulation. So when people are starting out, it's around wealth accumulation. Then once you accumulate wealth, you're able then now to manage the wealth, right? So wealthy people, you see them talking about wealth management. But after that, it's about wealth transfer. But I always tell people that once you transfer the wealth, you need to teach your children to keep building, to keep growing, to keep creating wealth. Because if they don't do that, then guess what? They will eventually deplete the wealth that was created. As you can see, if you start from a perspective of I'm creating this wealth for me and my children and my children's children, and you teach that to your children, even when your children inherit, they'll keep building. But if you do it, this is what I'm doing for me, and you don't teach that to your children, when they get it, they'll spend it. And so when they spend it, by the time it goes to their children, they have nothing. And then their children start from scratch, which is not what God has said that we need to do. So we always need to be teaching our children to keep building, to keep growing, and keep creating wealth. I always say we all work hard, we want to grow our wealth. And when we transfer it, we need to start thinking what I call the legacy of wealth, which is the money that you have. how would this be transferred, but also legacy of purpose, which is impact. I alluded to it again around my family and what they have done in the past. And because I saw that happen in my family, even I support the church in the way that I can. And so also in your family, you have to ask yourself, what is the legacy of purpose? What will I be known for? What will my family be known for? And if it hasn't happened in the past, then it should start with you. Because the way you have financial prosperity, the way you create wealth is because people will support you and what you do, and God will bless you if you ask for it. So remember, you want to have a legacy of wealth and a legacy of purpose. And so with that, I will end with about financial prosperity before I now answer questions about money, because I know you might have more questions. When we started this program, we talked about faith, family, and financial prosperity. And we said faith is being sure of what we hope for certain and what we do not see. Again, have faith that you will be financially prosperous and have hope. You might not, it's not there in reality, but it will happen. So I always say you cannot be afraid. You need to move away from fear. A lot of us fear failure. A lot of us fear success. You have to have faith that it will happen. You have to go forth and be who God called you to be. We talked about purpose. We talked about your assignment. What is that? And I believe once you know what your purpose is, what your assignment is, and you go forth and be who God called you to be, and that is when you'll have favor, you'll have faith, and you'll be prosperous, which ultimately is the goal that we're all trying to seek, right? How do we be prosperous? And so there are a few Bible verses here that I really wanted to share, because this was all about the biblical principles about creating wealth and being financially prosperous. Proverbs, which is a book that I would encourage all of you to read, really talks about being prudent and being a wise person. This is very critical on your wealth creation journey and for you to be prosperous. The other thing it talks about is the diligent will rule. You have to be diligent in the work that you do. If you're diligent, then you will rule. And if you rule, then you will be successful financially. You also talk about on Proverbs 21, you talk about the wise have wealth and fools spend all they have. Again, it goes back to what we talked about, saving for a rainy day and investing for the future. The wise have wealth, and wealth is accumulated incrementally over time. But fools spend it all. Immediately they get money, they want to spend it all. They want to show that they have money. They're all over the place spending money that is not necessary. Spend money wisely, invest wisely, save for a rainy day. And that's what the Bible tells you about that. But in Romans 8, it just talks about how all things work for good for those who are called according to his purpose. So I believe that if you have faith, if you are working according to God's purpose and you're doing the assignment that you're called to do in this world, you will be successful. You will be successful. Whatever success looks like to you. My success is very different from your success. So remember that what you want is the success or the financial prosperity that is for you, not for other people, for you. Because what is successful for me, what success is for me is different from what success is for you. And in Matthew, it talks about building a good foundation. And building a good foundation for me is really understanding where you are, understanding what God says about wealth, and then building from there. Because if you do not build on a good foundation, then guess what? It will not be able to last the test of time, right? So you always have to build a good foundation, right? So in regards to finance specifically and money, you actually have to have your liquid assets, so a rainy day assets, and then you need to diversify your investment portfolio so that you can have wealth that will grow, and that then will, you will be able to leave an inheritance for the next generation. And I'll end with Deuteronomy 8:18 that says, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors as is it today. So God will give you the ability to produce wealth. He swore to your ancestors, and it will happen for you today. So if you have faith, if you believe that it will happen, then it will happen. And so for me, I wish you all the best. I wish you prosperity in your family, financial prosperity, and I know that you will be able to achieve that which you have proven you want to